Hi guys, I wasn't planning on bringing you this video. I started doing a Centurion Mod, here she is, and I was speaking to some of my friends and they said that they haven't seen a Centurion Mod guide type thing done in quite a while, and it'd be good if maybe I did one, so I thought, why the hell not? And I'm already part way through, so I'll bring you up to speed. There'll be some pictures and some voiceovers and whatnot as I bring you to where I currently am, and then I shall continue recording what I'm planning on doing. But first of all, the intention was to remove some of the locks, make the front barrel easier to come off the blaster because it's a pain in the arse, and upgrade the spring. I've already removed the AR. That was a nightmare. The spring, the screws that held the AR in place were a nightmare to get off. I had to literally get my Dremel and file away the top of the screw, and in order to get a proper good hold in there, it was just stuck. I stripped the screws trying to pull them out, and they're tiny screws. It's ridiculous. So I'll show you all of that. I'll show you what I've done so far internally. I'll show you what I've got behind me, which is the old spring stuff. And yeah, we'll get on with it.
Okay, so we've got the barrel. I've done nothing with this. I've not modified it whatsoever. I've just taken it off. The bits that I've modified internally, let me quickly go over those. You've got the internal peg on this side. You can see that I've filed down the back part of it, made it a bit smaller, and it slopes back. I haven't got a before picture. I'll see if I can dig one out. But that's something I saw Jodocast do, so credit to him for doing that. I've also done the same on the other side. So hopefully you can see, yeah, so I've done the same on this side with this piece by here. Now, I haven't glued that in because I don't need to, because I don't want to really run it without the barrel. What else have I done? So I stupidly greased up the gearbox, and I had to put all that back together. There were two locks here, I think one by there and one by there, that I've removed because they were absolutely useless. When I put it all back together the first time, it didn't want to know. And there was a lock that sits inside this green bit. Now, the green bit's important because that retains the spring which holds the catch. But there was another lock inside there that just, it was so finicky that it needed to be in exactly the right position in order to let it fire, otherwise it would just catch the trigger and the trigger wouldn't return. So they're all the internal mods that I've done. I've removed the plunger tube and it's currently in pieces, as you can see. So this is my upgraded spring, so I'll put over there. This is the spring that came with it, and this was already under a bit of tension inside the tube, which I didn't realise. So that was useful to find out about that, but it's rubbish. It doesn't do anything, it's crap. Then what I did was, because basically, let me reassemble this sort of without the spring, and I'll show you what I did. Okay, so that's sort of what it looks like out of the box. There's some rubber stoppers by here that actually sit in here that I removed because I didn't want to melt them. What I then did was I unscrewed the air restrictor like so, and then this, when it's not cut in half, sits like that. I then spent a stupid amount of time slowly melting the solvent weld in this bit. And I say slowly because I had a bad experience with my hammer shot where I melted it. So I spent 2 hours doing this. I probably could have done it in about half an hour if I'd gone straight for the really hot water, but no, my luck, it would have warped and melted it, so I didn't do that. But once you've done that, this pops off here, and then this whole assembly of the inner tube just pops out. Give me a second. Now, obviously there's a cut in the middle that I put in there. I've been advised that perhaps that wasn't the best thing to do, so don't trust me on that. Again, following some of the stuff I've seen Jodocast do. So I've been told that it might have been easier to try and get rid of the solvent weld at either end. That might have worked. So I've taken this from a donor strife, and I've cut this down the middle so it's squishy. So as you can see, it's going to be a bit smaller. I'm then going to sand all of that, and then place it inside there. I'm going to solvent weld that in the middle and then seal it with epoxy. And then I'm going to cut a section of this to sit on the outside and do exactly the same to give it some extra strength. What I'm also going to do is get rid of this. Let me show you. See those 4 indentations? I'm going to use some milliput to seal them up so the air can't escape. I'm also going to do the same with the plunger tube because we've got these 4 massive holes on there. So they're all going to be milliputted up as well. So that and this crazy 13 kilogram spring that I found on eBay. Hopefully the gearbox will survive and I can actually fire some darts at it, but it's going to be a cool experiment to see what happens. What I'll do now is I'm going to go away and do some of the sanding, some of the gluing and the milliputting, and then I'll be back with an update. Okay, so all I've done is I've used this little file here to just file out just roughen up the insides ready to insert my milliput. So yeah, that was nice and easy. Right, so milliput is finished. This needs to cure for a bit. I think I'll leave it overnight. Same for this here. This is a bit of a mess, but the duct tape worked well. I'll tidy that up, give it a sand down, just to make sure that none of this is, you see some lumps on there and whatnot. Right, seeing as I've had to send off some DevCon plastic weld, I thought it was worth, during the intermission, to very quickly just reiterate that you shouldn't use solvent weld. I was under the impression that it would be okay, but it's not suitable for high pressure or anything under load type bonding. And so don't do that. Get the DevCon plastic weld stuff. I'll stick a link in the description. Also, this that I was going to sheath around the outside of the white tube. I'm not going to do that either because that actually feeds, the tube itself goes through a hole when you prime the whole thing, and having this on the outside will stop that from happening. So I might take this and maybe make a longer inner sleeve rather than using the little orange bit that I've got, but I'm undecided as yet. I'll see how that goes. Okay, the wait continues for DevCon. Alright guys, just a quick update while I'm still waiting for my DevCon. So here's the finished plunger tube with the milliput. See if we can get to focus. There we go. I put a little layer of Gorilla Glue on top. I have no idea if that's going to make any difference whatsoever. You can see it's lovely and smooth on the inside as well. So hopefully that's going to hold. Also, where's it gone? There it is. I've done the same with that one, so that's all tidied up. Fingers crossed that it's going to behave itself and that it's going to hold. Also, I noticed 2 things. First one, the washer, the O-ring washer on this is terrible. Look at that. That is awful. So I also noticed that the plunger head has these 2 holes either side, but I'm not going to do anything with those. I'm going to leave them as is. I think I've bunged up enough of this. What I have done is I bought some of these. These were £1.50 at my local Wickes, and I believe one of these, the second smallest of the O-rings, is going to fit on here. The other option was to put some Teflon tape on it, but the O-ring is quite old and it's really loose. Look at that. So I'm hoping that this slightly bigger O-ring, you can see they're quite thick, and it being maybe just a little bit smaller will be a really nice fit on this. So I'll fit it and I'll come back and show you guys what it looks like. Okay, so right, these 2 here, whilst they fit really nicely on the plunger head, and there's very little, they're not loose, they do not actually fit down the tube. So I don't know, I'm going to have to stick with this, and I'll put some Teflon tape underneath it just to stop it wiggling about too much. Yeah, it's a bit disappointing, unless I can find something else. These are too thick, and all the smaller ones that were available weren't as big in diameter as these ones. They were as thick but smaller. Like, this was probably the biggest one they had in the packet, and that's too small. Right, so I put some Teflon tape. Put some Teflon tape around the plunger head, and I did 3 wraps originally, and then decided that actually I'm not going to do that. With the upgraded spring, I don't think it's going to add that much benefit. Also, I would have had to have wrapped so much on there to stop it from being loose, it would have almost been pointless. So I'm going to leave it as is, and hopefully that's going to work for me. What I'm also maybe going to do is I've yet to decide whether I'm going to reinforce these joins up here. I'm assuming this is all solvent welded, but I don't know. I might cover the hopefully you can see some of this. Some of these joins in DevCon, just to give it a bit more strength. Not that I think that it's going to pop off, but you never know. While I'm at it, I should also mention that I've cut a slightly longer piece of tube, cut a section out of it. The plan is that's going to go in the middle there, but I'm also going to use this as a brace inside it to give it some extra strength. So as soon as my DevCon turns up, I will have basically 3 layers of plastic inside that little tube there. I know it's going to reduce the airflow going through there a little bit, but I'm not too worried about that because of how mental this spring is, and bunging up the holes. So yeah, we did that too. So yeah, just we're still waiting. It's here! It's here! Yes! Okay, right, we are halfway through the DevConning process. I've just double sleeved this, and I'm about to assemble the entire thing and DevCon it all together, and then we will set it aside and we'll wait for 24 hours before we do the next step. Okay, just a quick update. This is all back together. These end screws, that end screw there and that end screw there were an absolute friggin' nightmare to get in. I'm now going to leave that for 24 hours. It's going to go by there, and then tomorrow we shall DevCon the tube back together and wait until the following day, once that's all cured, to reassemble everything else. Alright, so it's been 24 hours. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to lube up the plunger tube and the O-ring, slot it all back together, DevCon on here, slide it into place, put the screw back in, and then leave it alone for a bit. And then once that's been done, I'm going to put the AR back on, and then we'll be ready for reassembly. What I'm also going to do is I think I might upgrade the catch spring on the catch mech, just because I think I've got some stronger springs that will fit, so I might have a look at that too. Alright guys, so this is all back together now, other than the air restrictor, which I might pop on while it's drying. But yeah, this plastic weld stuff is potent, so if you do use it, just be careful. Alright, I'm not going to put any on here because of how it melts the plastic. It literally is like welding plastic together. It's a very accurate description, so I'm not going to put any on here, because I reckon it'll probably, whilst it'll dry and whatnot, I don't know what it's going to do to it, so I'm going to leave it be. So next job, put the AR on, find a new spring for the catch, and then put it all back together and do a firing test, and then yeah, we're getting towards the sticky end now. It's good. Right, so I've removed the green catch lock trigger thing that sits by there, and I've had a look in my box of tricks, my box of springs, and I found this. It's a little bit longer than the catch spring that was already in there, but I'm going to give it a go with it like that, and if it's too long I'll trim it down, because it's a much tougher, hopefully you can see that compared to this flimsy thing. So yeah, that's got like nothing to it, nothing, it's rubbish. Whereas actually that's got at least something to it. I'm trying to squash that with my fingers and can't. Squashing that with my fingers is bending. So yep, fingers crossed that's going to do a job for me. I've cut down the upgraded spring by about a quarter, I'd say, and I've lubed up the inside, because when I put it back together the spring was actually too strong for allowing the trigger spring to pull the trigger back into the forward position. So I would prime it, it would get stuck and I'd have to pull it forward manually. So hopefully that's going to solve that issue. As you can see, everything's in place and still waiting for the cure to finish. But in a few hours that'll be done and we can do a firing test. She's all back together now, and hopefully you can see that the trigger is now returning nicely. It makes a nice clunky sound. Thanks to all the locks being removed and extra springs and lube and stuff. Still waiting for the DevCon to cure though, so, well, you know what that means.
Alright, this is just a quick firing test to see if this thing survives.
So, I'm going to ask myself a couple of questions. Can I prime it? Will it catch? Will it fire? Can I do it more than once? So let's go. Forward. Okay, we've got something catching on the return. We give it a bit of a slam and it seems to work, so I need to have a little look at that. So, we're ready to fire. So it primes and it catches. I'm going to aim for the box on the wall. Can I do it again? Yes, but we're going to have to look at that forward priming mech. Okay, this is silly. Last one. Okay, this is scary and I'm afraid. Okay, so a little bit of work to do with the forward priming mech, but other than that, pretty good. Right, so I found the culprit of my priming issue. It's this piece by here. Now it doesn't look like it's doing anything to any of the dart tooth type assembly or any of that. So I'm going to take this front piece off and then I'm going to remove this piece here and then put it back together and see if it's working as expected.
We're on to firing test number 2. I'm happy with that. So final thoughts then. I'm really happy with the performance. It's brilliant. I haven't got a chrono though, so I'm going to need to go and do that at the next Bristol Blast. I'll do that and then post up a video later this month with the results. I know that stock it was getting 60. It's got to be a lot more than that, but I don't know exactly how much more. I'm not even going to guess. We'll let the results speak for themselves. What I will say is this blaster's resisted everything I've tried to do to it. I've spent hours and hours and hours and hours and hours on it over a period of weeks, and it did not want to be modded. It doesn't like being modded, but if you stick at it, you can do it. Would I recommend anybody doing this? Hell yes, you should, because they're awesome.